Good day, my plant foldies. This is Richie at GrowFolds, and today we'll be big box store plant shopping at the Lowe's off of Preston Road in Frisco, Texas. As always, please make sure you are pressing the thumbs up or like button for this video. It definitely helps push this content out to more plant lovers like yourself, as well as following me on Instagram at GrowFolds. That's the fastest and most direct way to get in touch with me as well. If you have any questions about the plants I feature or just want to connect with me. And for those that are new to the channel, I call my viewers and subscribers plant foldies. Welcome. My name is Richie. It is a beautiful morning and I am going to one of my favorite big box stores, Lowe, specifically at this location, because this location, which is located out in Frisco, Texas, has always been consistent when it comes to the restocks and having their plants healthy and ready for us to go shopping and buying up all the plants. But before we get into the plant shopping today, I did want to talk about the fact that I am part of a plant podcast called The Cultivation Corner with Janae Simone and Stephen of I Live Plants. I cannot believe we will be on season 2. Season 2 will be premiering on February 18th at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That is a Tuesday. I hope you've all already subscribed to the official Cultivation Corner YouTube channel. We are going to have a lot of new guests on there. And if you like podcasts, especially ones that talk specifically about plant topics, please follow us, listen to us, and watch our plant podcast show, The Cultivation Corner. But going back to the plants, as you can see right here, this location has some awesome plant merchandising and styling and a bunch of new plants that have been restocked. So you can see that is a live trends plant right there. That is a sculpture headpiece and it is a green marantha. And you can see right here, we have for $18.98 a specific type of orchid. It's not a dendrobium orchid, it's something else. I really love how fragile looking these blooms are, and just the yellow blooms in general are very pretty. You know, spring is literally just around the corner. I cannot wait for spring to come around because we're already receiving a lot of plants out in the North Dallas area, which is where I'm based at. And you can see over here, there's another restock. So this is another head sculpture with an Epipremnum aureum in neon pothos. So today's video, I want to feature a lot of the more uncommon, well, actually not uncommon. I want to feature the more common and underrated, overlooked plants. So I definitely want to talk a little bit more in detail about that. But I will also pan over and show you all the other plants that they have available for purchase here. You can see we've got some Callia lilies. We've got some colorful bromeliads. And when I first started doing my plant shopping videos about a year ago, I remember going to big box stores and I remember just looking at bromeliads and asking the question of why are there so many bromeliads at big box stores? I suppose they're just readily available. You can see this one is in a crate, but as I continued to look at the plant, I did find the beauty in it. I really love the colors and it's just a beautiful plant. It's a plant that's not currently in my plant collection, but it would be something I would be open to adding in my collection. As you already know, if you've been following my YouTube videos for the past couple of months, I have tried to downsize my plant collection. I experienced a little bit of plant burnout over the holidays. The holidays were just extremely stressful and busy for me, and just balancing more than 100 plus plants, it just was taking the joy out of actually growing plants. So I've started to downsize my plants. I've tried to make it a little bit more curated, and I've been a little bit more selective in the plants that I add into my collection. I mean, this is a beautiful plant that I've featured multiple times. This one is a Dieffenbachia, for instance, and this Dieffenbachia maculata, love the light foliage it has. It reminds me of my favorite plants to grow right now, which are Aglaonemas. And that's the thing though, for the new year 2025, I've really tried to simplify my plant care, whether it's converting my plants that are in soil substrates to semi-hydroponics, specifically putting them in substrates called lechuza pon or Leca. And for those that don't know what semi-hydro substrates are, definitely check out my relaxing plants chores video where I show you step by step on how to convert plants that are in soil to semi-hydroponics, like Leca. Now over here, Plantfoldies, I did want to feature some Vanda orchids. So it looks like this particular Lowe's has gotten some Vanda orchids. I am a fan of Vanda orchids because number one, Vanda orchids are endemic to my family's home country, which is the Philippines. So proud Filipino American here. If you are kababayan, please say hello, kamusta. I would love to see some more Filipino Plantfoldies commenting in the comment section. But Vanda orchids are known as the queen of orchids, and I love the fact that this one has a unique color about it. I don't typically see orchids like this. It must be a very specific hybrid. Now, I would be tempted to purchase a Vanda orchid. This one is for $36.98. But the problem with Vanda orchids, at least for my environment, in my space, in my home, is I don't necessarily have the best lighting conditions and just the humidity levels. I have a plant room where I pretty much house the majority of my plants, but I am really trying to save more space for the easy care plants. And speaking of easy care plants, here is an Epipremnum aureum Enjoy Pothos. And pothos in general are plants that I think people are really into or they just overlook. This is an Urban Jungles plant right here for $13.98. Really good price. So if you want to go shopping or if you love shopping at big box stores, specifically for houseplants that are easy care, highly recommend pothos in general. And I do have to ask the Plantfoldies that are watching how you pronounce pothos. Do you pronounce it as Pothos or Pothos, or do you pronounce it as Epipremnum aureum? I like to say Epipremnum aureum. It just kind of just rolls out of my tongue. It's just kind of an interesting way to say it. And I don't know, I tend to like the more Latin terms for these plants. So that's kind of like what I want to say. But I'm curious to see how you pronounce them. Please leave that in the comment section below. And if you made it this far into the video and still haven't pressed the thumbs up or like button, I'd really appreciate that. It definitely helps push this content out to more plant lovers like yourself. I really would love to see our subscriber count be up to 12,000 subscribers by the end of February. And, you know, speaking of February, I have to give you some updates. I am so excited to be going to the PlantCon 2025 in Orlando, Florida. So I will be flying out there and I'm going to go ahead and cover the event. I will be filming hours and hours of PlantCon videos. I've done that for the Houston PlantCon as well as the Dallas PlantCon, and it was a lot of fun. So if you like the more rare and uncommon plants and you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel and you want to see that PlantCon coverage, definitely subscribe to my YouTube channel with all the notification bell on. The thing about it is, Plantfoldies is, or for anybody watching this video, whenever you press the subscribe button, it defaults to personalized notifications. But if you really want to stay up to date with my daily plant shopping videos or any content that I put out, whether it is a shorts video, a community post, you definitely want to make sure that you have checked all notification bell on. Anyways, going back to the plants, you can see that this particular Lowe's does have quite a bit of urban jungle live trends plants, and we will delve into the Costa Farms plants. Obviously, Costa Farms is the premier nursery that provides pretty much at any big box stores. They're pretty much everywhere. Even local nurseries have that. Now, I want to pick up this Syngonium, beautiful pink color. This one is for $13.98. Now, I have to admit that Syngoniums and I have fallen out of love for each other. And the reason being is Syngoniums have been my first love. I feel like I could rekindle that love for Syngoniums. The problem with Syngoniums is they aren't as easy of a plant to grow. They are vigorous growers. And sometimes whenever a plant is a fast growing plant, some people will mistake that as easy care. The problem with Syngoniums, and I don't want to like discourage anybody, I'm literally just talking from my personal experience, is if you do not water your Syngoniums consistently and you allow them to dry out for a longer period of time, they're not as forgiving. Basically, they will really decline in health very quickly. Story time, for example, is I had a Syngonium that was for $5, really bushy, really full Syngonium. And yes, I will put it in a disclaimer. I will take accountability in the fact that yes, I neglected the plant. But even after having a drought spell, watering it within 24 hours, it'll perk back up. But I actually waited a little bit too long to water the Syngonium to where it's really taking a while for it to bounce back. And even then, a lot of the leaves started to turn brown. And, you know, it's one of those things where it has become slightly less leggy, or not leggy, but it's slightly less full, and more leggy is what I meant to say. And so I don't know, Syngoniums, and it's really my fault. And that's the thing about it, is we can't really blame the plant if it's not performing. That is the thing we all have to realize, plant foldies, is the fact that when a plant starts to decline, when a plant is not performing, it has to do with either the care we're providing the plant, the environment we introduce the plant to. And so I urge everybody, before you are going shopping for plants, to do just a little bit more research on the plants and, you know, care tips, whether it's the lighting condition, the temperature of the environment, the humidity levels, and most importantly, the amount of time you can actually invest into the plant care. It's very exciting. You know, I will tell you this, picking up a plant like this Peperomia obtusifolia variegata, for instance, this one is an easy to care for plant, durable plant. But even with a plant as durable as this, it's still a challenging plant in the fact that if you don't have the time, and you have this particular plant plus another 25 plants, the watering itself is going to be a little bit more challenging. So as far as, you know, care routines, I do ask anybody that's watching this shopping video today, what is the most challenging part about growing plants? Is it the watering? Is it the pest control? Is it the restraint to stay within budget? I would say for me, it's definitely the watering, and it also having the restraint to actually purchase plants all the time. Like it's kind of becoming more of an actual addiction, and I really need to get grips on that. But how do you not want to buy plants when you are faced with such a beautiful Vanda orchid, for instance? Now this one again is for $36.98. This is by Better Grow Orchids, and as far as orchids, I would highly recommend Lowe's to purchase different types of orchids. There's Phalaenopsis orchids, there's Dendrobium orchids, there's Calathea orchids, there are Vanda orchids, and there's some other orchid hybrids, more so than any big box store or even a grocery store. Now, if you shop at Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has the most cost-effective or inexpensive orchids, but I would give Lowe's as having the most diverse types of species of orchids. And that goes to another point, plant foldies. We are always going into a big box store. I love the fact that every day I can take you alongside. I can talk your ears off for a straight hour. And I know I've been given feedback before where I'm literally just talking through the video, but I get really excited. I love to just really tell you guys my insights about the plants, and I could ramble on, I suppose, but hopefully you find some value in some of the plant care that I give, some of my plant commentary and insights. But you know, going to a big box store like Lowe's, for instance, on a daily basis, like legit, I am always at a big box store every single day, or a grocery store, or someplace that sells plants. And when you do that, and when you're filming content like this, it becomes a challenge to not spend money. And I'm really trying hard not to really use all of my plant budget. I know that I got out of hand the ending part of 2024. I'm really trying to stay within budget for 2025. I really do think, though, a lot of people, especially when it is the new year, the month of January, people really slow down on their buying, their spending, and that's a good thing. I think recalibrating and just refocusing where we spend our money is a good thing. And even though plants bring us a lot of joy, plants can also bring us a lot of hardship financially. And you know, I've seen it where some people have literally spent thousands and thousands of dollars. I was a little bit concerned that maybe I had a plant addiction, like a legit addiction to plants. And for me to kind of mitigate that, or to keep myself from going full-blown plant addiction, I have really tried to do more of what you call window shopping. You know, picking up beautiful plants like this Aglaonema Silver Bay. And you already know Plant Foldies. If it is a Grow Folds video, I will talk about Aglaonema. I will try to convince anybody that is going to lend an ear to listen to the reasons why we should all add Aglaonema. But, you know, as much as I love the Aglaonema Silver Bay, it's a plant that's more of a want. And yes, surprisingly, it is more of a want for me versus a need. A need is a plant you have to buy today, especially how we say that on Cultivation Corner. But as far as the plants that we're looking at, for instance, this Philodendron Moonlight, beautiful neon colored plant. This is another plant that in order for it to really maintain that neon color, that yellow color, you have to provide it with quite a bit of light. I would recommend, if you're not able to put it near a south facing window, a west facing window, to grow it under a grow light and let your grow light at least for minimum be on that plant for a good 9 to 10 hours. Now over here, we've got another, I think this is a Hoya on a trellis by Live Trends, but you can see that this Lowe's, we haven't even gotten to the shelves, but this right here is just the overflow of plants. Right next to it is some of the succulents and cactus. And I did want to spin around. So while it's still fairly cold outside to where you can't really put your seeds outside, I will say, if you watch my videos from last year, I had a legitimate Coleus addiction, where literally everywhere I went, I wanted to buy Coleus. And I'm getting to the point where if I'm going to spend money on Coleus, I'm thinking of maybe just growing them from seed. I did that. I was able to successfully grow Coleus from seed. And if I'm going to spend or want to be a little bit more budget friendly, buy a packet of seeds of Coleus and grow it. I did want to point out a couple of plants that I do love. I love growing zinnias. So zinnias, growing up, my grandmother, who is the source of all my plant love and you know, a dedication to plants, she used to grow zinnias from seeds. And it was really interesting because when we harvested the seeds from the zinnia, we would always find some really unique coloration from the next generation of seeds. So quite interesting. But this is the rainbow mix pack that I would recommend if you are a Coleus lover. Now, some people only think that Coleus should be a patio outdoor plant. I disagree. You can grow Coleus indoors, and truthfully, Coleus are very versatile plants. You can grow them indoors, you can grow them outdoors, depending on what type of Coleus. For instance, if you find a sun Coleus, that can even grow in full sun. Now, the majority of Coleus you'll run into are more shade loving. So when spring comes around, I will feature a lot of the Coleus plants as well. But let's just go ahead and spin around, and I'm just going to show you some more plants that are available at this Lowe's. Here's another gorgeous Vanda orchid right over here. Really love the look of this particular Vanda orchid as I spin around, because take a look at this. The flowers are actually in smaller clusters here. I love the colors as well. And there are actually 2 offshoots of different blooms. So here's one cluster of blooms, and then there is another one. So as far as Vanda orchids, again, it's just really interesting the diversity of blooms these Vanda orchids have, and even the colors. But I am actually more impressed with the linear lines that the aerial roots have. It really does make it a nice hanging plant. And if I just had the lighting conditions and humidity levels to sustain this type of plant, I would definitely add it to my home. But again, my home has wooden floors, so I don't really want to run a lot of humidifiers throughout the home. Now, Ficus lyrata or fiddle fig leaf plant, this one is for $15.98 in a self-watering planter. And I'm noticing that this plant is becoming even more readily available, even the compact varieties, which I really like as well. The ones that I have one that I bought from Costco, as well as one that I bought from Sprouts for 99 cents. It's another grocery store, and they're both doing well for me. Which reminds me, I do need to water the one I bought from Costco. Otherwise, it's going to end up going to plant heaven, or at least dropping its leaves. But as you can see right here, I am going to keep showing you some of the hanging baskets and just keep showing you some of these plants, like this begonia red kiss. Really nice red foliage. Let me know what you think about this particular plant in the comments section. There are tons of different types of Costa Farms plants. I do love the Ficus lyrata as well as this Calathea dotty, but we already know the story about me and Calatheas. They just don't get along with me. I just can't seem to bring them the correct environment or plant care. So it's a plant that I'm not going to add to my plant collection, at least in the foreseeable future, but a plant that I will always add to my plant collection, which is really the demise of my financial budget, is the Aglaonema. So this one right over here is another Costa Farms release. This one is only for $15.98. This one, I don't have the particular plant ID for it right off the top of my head, and I try to learn a lot of Aglaonema names, but the problem with Aglaonema is very similar in look, and so it could have like a speck, a different type of color. It could even have just a certain amount of variegation and it changes the name. Or on another side, I think some Aglaonema are just the same plant, but with different names that people give it. Now, this one, I wish Costa Farms, that's the only critique I would say in terms of their plant IDs, is literally for the Aglaonema Colorful Collection or Aglaonemas in the self-watering planters. I just wish that they would give us more of the plant ID. It would just make collecting Aglaonemas a lot of fun. And if you are following me on Instagram at Growfolds, and I hope you would consider doing that, you will see that I have been very passionate about my campaign to show you different varieties of Aglaonema. To get back to the care tips, if you are just watching this video for the first time, Aglaonema can tolerate lower light conditions. They can tolerate drought conditions. You just water the plant when the soil is completely dry. You do not want to overwater an Aglaonema. They prefer to be more on the drier side. And in terms of a plant that can be very versatile in any space, you can even get this Aglaonema Silver Bay. This one is for $15.98. These colorful plants, they can tolerate lower light conditions. So the majority of us may not have a ton of windows in our home, really good lighting, but an Aglaonema can tolerate it. Would it grow as fast as if it did have more light? No, but at the same time, Aglaonemas are slow growers anyway. But in terms of a plant that I think is a beginner plant, a plant that is just gorgeous. I mean, here's another one right here. I love the Aglaonema Pink Siam. So they've got the red Siam, which is more common, and in the pink Siam, I love the pale pink stems, the veining, the margins, everything about this plant. And this one is a Costa Farms trending tropical plant for $19.84. So this one is a little bit more pricey than the other Aglaonemas. I would say Aglaonemas, I wouldn't say they're the most inexpensive plants, but at the same time, I do think that you can find them for a fair price, considering they are a little bit harder to grow in large numbers because they're so slow at growing. Now, here is another Aglaonema. I think this is an Aglaonema Lady Valentine. Not 100% sure again. Now, this is another Costa Farms trending tropical plant. Like I said again, I always gravitate to Aglaonemas whenever I am shopping, specifically at a big box store. And if a local nursery, for instance, like Peta's Planters, if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Peta's Planters is a small business local plant shop that you can find the rare and uncommon Aglaonema. It is the one plant shop in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that if you ever visit, you should go, because she carries Aglaonemas that cannot be found in a lot of areas in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I will say Dallas-Fort Worth, this metropolitan area has so many plant shops, plant nurseries, and big box stores. But as far as Peta's planters, nobody can beat her in terms of just the more rare and uncommon Aglaonema she has. Now, speaking of rare and uncommon Aglaonema, this is one that is always going to be close to my heart. This is the most common Aglaonema aside from the Silver Bay. For $15.98, this is an Aglaonema Red Siam. Now, here's the thing about the Aglaonema Red Siam. Notice that it has those red borders and the veining right in the middle of its leaf. Now, if you provide the Aglaonema Red Siam and even the Aglaonema Pink Siam, I'm actually going to ask, which Aglaonema do you prefer, the Pink Siam or the Red Siam? Please leave that in the comment section with the timestamp. Just curious where your plant aesthetics are. But for both Aglaonema Pink and Red Siam, the more light you provide those Aglaonema, the more coloration it's going to get in terms of red or in terms of pink. So there are plants that the coloration or variegation is really influenced by its initial genetics. So no matter how much light you give it, is always either going to push out more coloration or variegation or less. Aglaonemas are actually impacted by the amount of light you give it. So the more light you provide it, bright indirect light, never full sun, the colors will actually pop out a little bit more. Like this one right here, when you put all three Aglaonemas, they're just stunning. And that is the reason why I am very confused. I am baffled. I am shocked that people are not talking about Aglaonemas nearly as much as you would think about philodendrons, other aroids, variegated monsteras, all of that, because Aglaonemas are pretty rare, readily available at a big box store. You can, they're pretty affordable in terms of price, and there are literally hundreds of varieties. The only logic I have in terms of Aglaonemas not being such a mainstream plant that is trending, that is, that people are going after, is because the amount of varieties we have are very limited. And I am thankful that Costa Farms has been able to get us even more colorful Aglaonema. But if you ever see the Aglaonema hybrids from Thailand and especially Indonesia, you will be surprised and be addicted to Aglaonemas. That is what happened to me. That is why I continue to go buy plants from Green Spaces ID. It is a Indonesian nursery shop that ships to the United States. And the good thing about it is they actually have a business and broker that actually imports the plants. And once they're imported, that plant shop in the United States will ship directly to your doorstep. And that's how I've been able to acquire some of the more rare and uncommon Aglaonemas. So I would definitely check that out. And if you are interested in buying from greenspaces.id, the website, use my promo code GROWFOLDS20 for 20% off your entire purchase. I have bought at least 5 times from Green Spaces ID and have been super happy about that. But again, all of the plants I picked up, even that Dracaena right there, easy to care for plant. We've got another Dracaena. This one is a Dracaena Dorado. $15.98. You can see that it is fairly priced, and it is in a self-watering planter. It's already putting on quite a bit of growth, and this is another plant that's super easy to take care of. Dracaenas are another overlooked, underrated plant, but it is a plant that I just wish people would actually consider, aside from like an office, a dentist's office, a doctor's office, or some type of business environment. It needs to be in somebody's actual plant collection. Syngonium Trubai Moonlight for $19.84. This is another Costa Farms trending tropical plant. What I love about the Syngonium Trubai Moonlight is obviously the metallic shine on the leaves, that that bluish tint around it. It's got a very elegant presentation when it comes to the leaves. And for me, again, it is all about just getting plants that are easy to care for plants. Syngoniums in general are very similar to like the Epipremnum aureum or Pothos plants. The thing about it is Syngoniums are a little bit slower in its growth. Like this one, the Syngonium Trubai Moonlight, is definitely a lot slower than say an Epipremnum aureum. It is a plant that I've talked about on so many occasions where I want to add it to my plant collection. I just have yet to add it to my plant collection. What I am excited about, especially as it warms up, is is the fact that my house is starting to really get organized. I've got my IKEA cabinets together. I just need to be able to get my grow lights situated, and I shall be able to complete my houseplant tour. Plant foldies, thank you for waiting for more than a year. I know I've been talking about it for a while. I swear I'm probably the biggest tease when it comes to some of these more personalized plants, or even my face reveal. That may happen soon enough, but if you did want to see a little bit more than me besides just hearing my voice, definitely tune into the Cultivation Corner plant podcast. You can see me there. You can see me there wearing masks. And for those that have been supportive about me just wanting to be faceless on YouTube, I really appreciate it, because I do believe that it's all about the plants. We want to focus on the plants, not me. It's not necessarily a lifestyle blog where you necessarily have to see my face. But for those that have been super critical or negative towards me, you are more than entitled to your opinion in terms of that. I just was really surprised that somebody really called me disturbing in the comment section for just wearing a mask on my face. It slightly hurt my feelings, to be honest. And that's the thing about my shopping videos or just my plant content. I wish I could talk to you guys directly in person, but my thing about it is that's the reason why I just kind of tell you my plant insights. That was just an interesting observation about how people can be so judgmental in terms of just never meeting the person behind the content. And for those that have been a little bit more negative toward me, I ask you to pause for a second and think about the amount of effort a plant content creator puts into their content. Whether it's the hours of filming, the editing, the voiceover, the research, the traveling, etc., to provide content that is meant to be entertaining and to be positive. So I know I'm a little bit on a rant for that, but I actually got to thinking as I think about our Cultivation Corner Plant podcast, where the plant podcast itself is really meant to cultivate positive conversation, insightful discussions, things of that nature. And at the end of the day, I even read a comment where if you're going to make content where it's a public setting, then you should be comfortable being public. I agree to a certain extent, and I know I'm going off a tangent a little bit, but this is actually fresh on my mind. My thing about it is, if you are on a social media platform where it is public, you still have the right and you still have the choice on how much information you provide about yourself or the content that you share. It's kind of like when somebody has a perfect plant collection, right? They just show you all the beautiful photos, all the beautiful videos. That might all be misconstrued to the point where maybe they don't want to show you the browning leaves, the dead leaves, the plants that are about to make it to plant heaven. It's the same concept, and that's the reason why for the plant foldies that continue to just watch my videos and listen to me just talk, whether it's about plants, whether it's about my life, whether it's me talking about just some of the negativity that we can see on social media, that's where this community is why I really appreciate it, because I can really be my most authentic self. I can use this space to either talk your ear off, or you could choose not to listen to me or engage in my content. But I tell you, those, especially Kathy and Tree, some of my loyal plant foldies, Evelyn, Trish, there's just so many people. And if I miss shouting you out, it's just because there's so many of y'all that continue to go on the live premieres. But let me get off of my soapbox for a second. As you can see right here, I did pan over all of the gorgeous planters here. What I like about the planters at Lowe's is they have many varieties. I do like the more simplistic planters, especially the ones that are neutral grays, creams, whites. I don't really like bright planters, and it really is more of my plant aesthetics. Although I will say all of the planters on this shelf I could add to my collection, because there's a very intentional texture about it, whether it's a modern shape or even the subtleties of it. I really love that planter here with the wooden plant stand. Very simple shape. I'm all about simplicity when it comes to the shape of the plant. I would say my plant aesthetic, or even my home aesthetic, is modern contemporary with a dash of Japanese influence as well, if that makes sense. That's why I do a lot of that origami. Now, I do want to spend a little bit more time to show you all the colorful blooms of these orchids. I love the fact that this Lowe's really has a bunch of different types of orchids, and we do have like more trending tropical plants. Now, if you notice that self-watering planter is very simplistic, it doesn't have any texture. I honestly wish Costa Farms would produce, or at least have those more so in mainstream, where it's the smooth texture, that simplistic shape. I remember seeing Costco carry trending tropical plants by Costa Farms, and they had that particular self-watering planter. And then over here, I'm just going to keep picking up plants. This is another Ficus lyrata, $15.98. You know, as far as care tips, Ficus lyrata really need a lot of light. Any ficus plant definitely needs it. The more light you provided, the better off it's going to be. The less light you provide it, then you're kind of gambling on whether that plant is actually going to want to go to plant heaven sooner than you think. And then over here is another Aglaonema, and this is just a green one. This is another prime example of a beautiful but underrated plant, especially it being green. I almost feel like it doesn't even have a chance for somebody to pay attention to it, but that Aglaonema Maria is such a performer. It will not be so finicky as compared to this Calathea Green Goddess, for instance. This one is for $15.98, and Calatheas, they are the biggest heartbreakers. You know, they can tempt you just like somebody that you would see out in a social gathering where you might find them super attractive, but then when you start to get to know that attractive person, their personality may not really match their physical appearance. It's kind of like that with Calatheas, and I know I sound somewhat negative when it comes to that, and it's the same thing with Alocasias. Like this Alocasia poly, for instance, $15.98. The only way I am able to grow Alocasias long term is to grow them in semi-hydroponic substrates, specifically lechuza pond, because even growing them in Leca is a gamble. But if you put Alocasia in lechuza pond, that's when they really perform. Now over here is another Calathea, and like I said again, beautiful foliage. It's just a plant that doesn't love me back. I've had multiple Calatheas make it to plant heaven, and honestly, whenever a plant makes it to plant heaven, so does my money, and ends up going to plant heaven as well. And I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to manage my plant budgeting and finances. You know, I am thankful that I have a career where I can afford some of these plants, but at the end of the day, whenever a plant dies or goes to plant heaven, better yet to say, it still kind of cuts into your plant budget. And I asked the plant foldies watching today, as we go shopping for big box store plants like the Xanthosoma, what is your shopping budget? What is your shopping budget for plants, at least within a week span or a month span? If you get a chance, please leave that in the comment section. I would really like to know, just so I can see a general range of what people spend money on plants, because again, I have started to really do some research, and I didn't even realize that there are certain people who have collected plants that have really put themselves in debt. There was one content creator, and if you really dig into some of the older YouTube videos, this particular person has kind of changed genre from doing plants to something else in terms of their YouTube content, but they ended up like spending close to $20,000 on plants, and to me that is insane. But then again, I totally get it too. When you are all about those rare and uncommon plants, it's really quick to swipe that card or to tap that Apple Pay to pay for the plants. Now, as far as plants again that are performers, this one is an Epipremnum aureum golden pothos. Please get yourself a pothos plant. I am definitely somebody who loves Epipremnum aureum, all varieties. And if you really want to delve into the more rare and uncommon ones, look for the Japanese pothos or the Taruno World Series. There was one that I found actually, a Champs Ulysses Epipremnum aureum at Target of all places. And as I do more shopping videos, hopefully as it warms up, I'll be able to venture into Target. I'm not sure if anybody here is a Target or Target shopper. I definitely am. I love the products that they have, specifically their home decor as well as their current planters. Now, I know like Walmart has really stepped up its game when it comes to like the Better Homes and Garden planters, but if you look at Target, where they have own brands like Threshold, and even Room Essentials. Those planters that they have, I've been super addicted to and have been purchasing them as catch pots. Now, as far as this philodendron painted lady, this is another trending tropicals plant that is commonly found these days by Costa Farms, $19.84. It is the fastest reverting type plant. If you don't give it enough light, it ends up being more green. And then we have this one right here. So Lowe's has these mixed planters of different types of plants in a self-watering planter by Costa Farms. I'm not sure if it is an exclusive, but it is one that I would err with caution, because you have to really see whether the plants have the same care tips for and lighting conditions. Now, this is a plant find. This one is for $19.98. This is an Aglaonema pink Dalmatian. So yes, you're gonna say this looks similar to the Aglaonema Lady Valentine, but the difference is the pink Dalmatian has more narrow leaves as compared to the pink Valentine or the Lady Valentine, and it has more of a reddish tone to it. I was really debating on whether to buy another plant, but since this Aglaonema is only down to 2, I remember seeing more Aglaonema pink Dalmatians a little while back when I visited this particular Lowe's, but it looks like they're down to 2. And it's another Aglaonema I often don't see whenever it is the colorful Aglaonemas. So I definitely think that this is going to be a need. I have to buy it today, and this is still within budget. Now, this one right here, I would have totally bought, but if you notice, this only has one of those like net pots. So there should be at least 2 Aglaonema in this pot. I mean, I could potentially ask for a discount since it is missing one plant in there. There's typically 2 Aglaonemas within a Costa Farms trending tropical 6-inch planter, but you know, this is another candidate that if they ever do clearance this out and make it 50% off, the next time I come around, I will end up buying it as well, because Aglaonemas I can have multiples of. I love it. If you were to look at my collection, I have multiples of the same Aglaonema. I just can't get over how beautiful they are. And again, plant foldies, let me know in the comment section if for some reason you have started to actually buy Aglaonema. This one right here is a prime candidate of to be propagated. I may end up just separating the babies from this particular Aglaonema. And then you can see right over here we have a ZZ plant. Love the ZZ plant, and then right next to it is another Aglaonema Maria. So all of the plants that we have here are all the plants that I would add into my collection or have had in my collection. Like this one right here, Aglaonema Maria for $15.98. And you can see that that one is a pretty cost-effective plant. And even the green varieties are gorgeous. What you have to realize about Aglaonema is the nuances in their foliage and even the shapes in their foliage. There's just so much diversity on it. And the thing about Aglaonema is to hybridize them takes a while. So as more varieties start to come out from like Thailand and Indonesia, it makes things a little bit more interesting. And hopefully within the next year or so, we are going to be more exposed to the more colorful versions of Aglaonema. Let me know in the comment section, plant foldies, if you've ever gotten plants from overseas, whether you've imported them or you got them through a broker. Really curious to see if you would be delving into Aglaonemas, because like this one right here, now here's an example of a plant that's resilient and resistant. These are all Aglaonema pink cyams, and honestly, all of these Aglaonema pink cyams have literally been at this Lowe's for a good 2.5 to 3 months. It's actually survived through the cold months of the winter, and you can see that these are still taken care of by this this Lowe's. I would love to get another hold of the Aglaonema pink cyam. I mean, you put it right next to the Aglaonema pink Dalmatian, and it'll just make you excited to get them. And so after this video, plant foldies, if you haven't considered it, definitely at least consider buying yourself an Aglaonema Silver Bay or an Aglaonema Red Siam. I would really love to see all 11,000 plus plant foldies that watch my videos to actually pick up an Aglaonema. Who knows? Maybe this could be the next it plant for 2025. I sure would love to see it. And I think with all of us uniting and really talking about Aglaonema, creating a campaign for it, we might get some more people interested, but that Aglaonema Pink Siam for $19.84 is a stunner. It's something I want to get. And remember, if you want that coloration to really shine through, same thing with the Aglaonema Silver Bay, make sure you're providing them with a lot of bright indirect light. If you have a warmer climate, you can grow your Aglaonemas outdoors in a shaded area. And truthfully, your Aglaonema will actually grow a lot faster outdoors. But obviously with North Dallas, there's no way I would put my Aglaonema out in the cold. We've been having temperatures as low as 19 degrees. And so that would literally just destroy those plants. And if you are interested in knowing how many Aglaonema I have in my plant collection, I would say I have more than 50 varieties that I've acquired, and I'm going to get even more Aglaonema when I go to PlantCon 2025 in Orlando, Florida. I bought some Aglaonema from my friend at Art Garden Flowers. It's Ricky. Ricky actually has his own nursery shop that grows plants in Indonesia, and he will be taking pre-orders. I ended up pre-ordering, and he was able to source out some more rare and uncommon Aglaonemas. But let me just pan around here and walk around this Lowe's just to show you what other plants they have available. And plant foldies, you can see all of these gorgeous houseplants that you can find at this Lowe's. This Lowe's is always super full, and I love the fact that they have so many colorful orchids. They've got some Aglaonemas, they've got some easy to care for plants, new updates when it comes to live trends plants, urban jungle plants, and I ended up getting this Aglaonema Pink Dalmatian, which I intend to transfer into semi-hydroponics, specifically Leca. So you'll see that process, so please make sure you're staying tuned to the very end of the video to see how I get a 4-for-1 special on the plant. So obviously the first step to converting my plant into semi-hydroponics is to carefully take the plant out of its pot and making sure that you get rid of all of the soil. So here I am doing that. What I'm going to do is, and the soil unfortunately is actually super wet, which makes it a little bit more challenging. I'm going to try to get the plant out, and I noticed that there were several little babies that I can propagate from. So I will show you how I propagate and separate from the mother plant. You'll see that I'm carefully trying to take all of the soil out without having to rip up the plant. Here's the thing, if you've ever seen the net pots that are actually stuck on these Aglaonemas. Sometimes Costa Farms has these Aglaonema growing in net pots, and then they end up potting it up. So there is actually a cage that is keeping all of these roots entrapped. So I'm trying to separate the two Aglaonema plants that they have. And if you'll notice, these two Aglaonema have actually pushed out even more little baby sprouts to where you can separate from these plants. But we'll go ahead into detail about that later. But I'm just trying to get these separated. And you'll see plant foldies that I am slightly struggling with getting these plants out. So I'm going to have to take some scissors and actually cut the actual cage that is holding onto the the roots. The thing about Aglaonema, you'll know that it's got healthy roots because look at how white the roots are. Look at how thick and juicy these roots are. And that's the reason why in terms of using a semi-hydroponic substrate, instead of using Lechuza, which is a little bit more expensive than Leca, since the roots of an Aglaonema are not fine, they're actually pretty thick, I believe that Leca is still a pretty good substrate instead of using Lechuza. I do find Lechuza to be a little bit more for the plants that are, let's just say, fine rooted, like Alocasia, for instance. So I am just going to keep trying to get these cage out and to try to get it out. And it looks like I was able to successfully do it. So we're going to do it for the other one. And I'm just going to try to get as much of the soil out. I will be running the soil and cleaning the soil under running water, but even trying to get as much of the soil out before I have to use water is also a must. So definitely check that out. And I'm just going to pat this and see if I can get more of the soil out, and we're going to work on the second one. I already know I'm going to have to use my scissors to get rid of the actual net cages on the roots. You can see that I was able to successfully get them out of their cages, and you can see that the roots are very healthy. If you put them together, it's a super thick plant, but what I want to do is actually get a couple of plants out of this. I mean, I could keep them all in one planter, but I'm going to be using a 5-inch self-watering planter. But let me go ahead and set up my sink. Again, I always tell everybody I wouldn't recommend using your sink to clean the soil off of your plants because it may end up clogging your sink. I have a pretty good garbage disposal, but I want to go ahead and just make sure the sink is pretty clean. So we're going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is use my Plant Foldy mist spray, which is basically neem oil, to disinfect the roots as well as the leaves to get rid of any potential plant pests before I put them into a semi-hydro substrate. It's a little bit more challenging to do pest preventatives when you're growing plants in semi-hydro because you can't use like systemic granules to get rid of the plant pests. So I like to try to get as much of the potential plant pests off by spraying that down. And what I do is I actually leave the soil, I not leave the soil, but leave the neem oil on the plant. and then I just wash the roots as much as possible, and I'm just going to try to get as much of the soil out. It is very important to get very minimal soil left on your roots, because the soil could potentially root rot the plant when you put it into a substrate like Leca or lechuza pond. So I'm just going to clean up the roots. Plant foldies, you can see that there are 2 plants I can separate. So the baby is on the side. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors that I've disinfected, and I'm going to go ahead and chop right here. This is how you separate and propagate Aglaonema. You can go ahead and just chop from the side. Just make sure that you have enough roots. So let's see what I can do. Hopefully I don't like mess it up, but this is my first time kind of demonstrating how to split an Aglaonema and create more free plants. I always say if you can propagate and create more plants, and that's one way of saving money or even bringing joy to somebody else, because you can gift these plants. So this is here goes nothing. Let's see if it works. And boom, it is. So I just had one slight casualty on the roots, but look at that. I'm still able to separate it. And then there are 2 more plants right here. I could go and separate one more and get a 3rd plant, but I want to go ahead and do this. So this one right here is going to be potted up in a 5-inch self-watering planter. But after cutting the plant, I'm going to go ahead and throw away this root. I want to use cinnamon powder. And see, the thing about cinnamon powder is cinnamon powder actually is an antibacterial, antifungal. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap it on the wound or where the cut is. It'll actually callus that plant very quickly, and it will also kill any potential like bacteria or pests that could rot it. And I'm going to do it for the same thing right over here. Plant folies, again, if you have any questions about plant propagation for Aglaonema, please leave that in the comments section, and let me know if you like this additional bonus feature of not only going to plant shopping or shopping for plants, but also seeing the care that's that happens after you bring a plant home. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the this actual sink again, and we're going to go ahead and do another separation or plant propagation by separating and cleaning the roots of this Aglaonema. Plant foldings, I'm actually going to get the smallest little baby from the side. So I'm going to cut this and I'm actually going to plant it in a 3-inch self-watering planter. We'll see about this little tiny one, but you can see here is that this little baby right here. I'm going to definitely plant this and see if it'll end up growing a little bit larger. I found it a little interesting that I was able to at least get 4 plants out of this. So it's a 4-for-1 special in terms of the pricing. So $19.84 divided up by 4. And you can see that you are saving even more money on the Aglaonema. I'm just repeating the process of getting the cinnamon powder on the cuts to make sure that there's no potential root rot, or at least it mitigates that. I wouldn't say it guarantees it 100%, but you're definitely adding some more preventatives. And honestly, I could separate this Aglaonema one more time, but I want to keep it a little bit more full. So I'm going to leave both of these plants together, but I did want to go ahead and separate a little baby one right there. I think this is super cute and hopefully it'll grow. Next step is to obviously pot up the plants in Leca. What I'm doing is I'm using a 5-inch clear pot for this one. And if you notice, the wick string is there. I like to pull it up a little bit toward the middle of the pot and pull it up even more, so that way the wick string can take the water all the way up to the middle of the pot. And then I'm going to set the actual plant right underneath the wick string, so it's going to constantly keep it watered. I'm going to just try to place it as further down into the pot as possible. I want to try to not expose the stem of the Aglaonema, so it looks a little bit more full and less leggy. That's the only problem about Aglaonema, is they can get leggy very quickly, and so I want to plant this further down into the pot so it does look a little bit more bushy than what it is, because it's already been separated. But as far as the Leca, I bought my Leca from IKEA, and what you want to do is make sure you're patting the sides down, making sure that there's no air pockets, and then just whenever the plant is fully settled is when you know that it's fully finished in terms of potting it up. So let's just continue to watch me pot this up, and then I'll show you the nutrient solution and the final steps of this Aglaonema pink Dalmatian going into semi-hydro. kind of skipped that process of showing you how I rinsed the Leca. I went ahead and went straight to the finishing touches. So what you want to do is once you get them potted up, go ahead and rinse the Leca and then water them with nutrient solution, which you can actually refer to my semi-hydroponics video so you can see a more in-depth thing. But what I am doing now is I'm literally spraying them with some neem oil spray called We the Wild Protect Neem Oil Spray. This is the finishing touch that I do with all my plants. Is I like to spray them and then use my microfiber gloves and microfiber rag right here to rub that neem oil spray in to really curate and manicure the plants. I just feel like it gives it a nice leaf shine, and it also rubs away any potential plant pest, eggs, or pest in general. This is part of my plant chores routine. If you see my plants during my houseplant tour, you'll see that they're all super shiny and super healthy looking. I do love We the Wild neem oil spray, and then you'll see that I'm going to go ahead and do it for these other Aglaonema as well. Again, plant foldies, let me know in the comment section if you enjoy this type of content where I'm showing you how I care for my plants, what I do with my plants after I go shopping at a big box store like Lowe's, and if you thought it was a good idea for me to separate the plants, or should I have just kept it in its soil substrate. I'd like to know your insights, but I do feel like this is a good move for me. Now, as far as downsizing, this is definitely not downsizing. This is actually multiplying my plant collection. But like I said, again, when it comes to Aglaonema, I just feel like I can't get enough of them, and they're just so easy to care for. Here is a final product of my Aglaonema Pink Dalmatian that I bought from Lowe's. I ended up getting 4 plants for the price of 1 through separation and propagation. You'll see that 3 of them are actually potted up in Leca. The other one is sitting in water. I ran out of self-watering planters, so I had to wait for my my order from Amazon to come in the next day. But you can see the roots right now are super healthy. I will pot that up, but I did end up going and shining the leaves with the Protect Neem Oil Spray. You can buy the neem oil spray if you go shopping at Target. I would highly recommend getting We the Wild Neem Oil Spray. They sell them for kits at Target, so definitely check that out. But you can see these are literally my how you propagate Aglaonema through separation. I think it's the most effective way to do so. You can take cuttings and root them in water, but if you already have viable roots, it's easier just to go separate it and cut it from the mother plant. And as the Aglaonema develops and actually acclimates to Leca, it will eventually push out even more babies, and I'll be able to share those propagations with some of the plant foldies. But if you enjoyed this type of video, please make sure you are hitting the like button. I enjoyed showing you the shopping and process of converting this to semi-hydro. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Grow Folds with all the notification bell on. This is Richie. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.